So why do you even do this?
I do it because God is real, and the only way to keep his faith in the people is to show them proof, and the proof is in the teachings, it's in the predictions, and when they happen, it shows people that the fact that those messages are put out there, that he cares still, and that through them taking place, that he is real, because if he wasn't, they wouldn't happen to begin with.
What do you expect from it all?
I don't expect anything except to see people change, to be better versions of themselves, because as they better themselves, we can build a better society.
What if no one listened or even listens at all?
It doesn't matter how many people listen. If I can even reach just a few people that still have love in their hearts, then I'm okay with that. If I saved any lives, just a few, then I'm okay with that too.
The federal government could join the investigation into what caused a massive power outage in New York City. 73,000 customers across Midtown Manhattan lost power on Saturday.
Electricity crews are working around the clock to pinpoint what caused the power outage that blacked out half of Manhattan's iconic skyline. For about 5 hours Saturday, the city that never sleeps lost its nightlight, trapping people in elevators.
People trapped in elevators, 10-4.
And leaving subway riders stuck underground for hours.
Welcome to CBS This Morning. We begin with this. A lot of angry people in California, where hundreds of thousands of people in that state could be without power for days in the largest public safety outage in that state's history. PG&E started shutting off the power last night in more than half of California's 58 counties because of what the company calls an unprecedented wildfire danger.
Roughly 800,000 customers are likely to be affected.
This is what PG&E hopes will never happen again.
Vegetation fire underneath the transmission line.
A wildfire sparked by faulty transmission lines and fueled by high winds.
Firefighters, no match for flames this ferocious and this intense.
That curtain of fire igniting palm trees here on the Bolivian-Brazilian border, fueled by wind, the flames leaping across the dry brush. It's the collection of tens of thousands of blazes engulfing an area 2/3 the size of the continental United States. Fires burning from the equivalent of Detroit to Los Angeles.
Now, what's happening in Australia is unprecedented. The bushfires have killed 18 people. They've killed close to 500 million animals. They're over twice as big as the Amazon forest fires, and they're exerting extreme political pressure on Prime Minister Scott Morrison.
Good evening, and it's great to have you with us here on a Tuesday night, and we have a lot to get to. We begin tonight with frightening moments in South Florida today. The powerful earthquake, they felt it in Miami, a 7.7 magnitude quake, erupting along the same fault line that's affected Puerto Rico in recent weeks. The epicenter between Cuba and Jamaica.
School children hiding under desks in Jamaica, 77 miles from the epicenter. Others evacuated in Kingston.
Big earthquake going on. Look at this.
In nearby Cayman Islands, the pool water seen rattling. The last month has been an extremely active period for earthquakes in the Caribbean. Today's quake comes just 2 weeks after a series of devastating earthquakes in Puerto Rico, which sits on the same tectonic plates.
We're going to begin with the chaos in Puerto Rico. A 6.4 earthquake and multiple aftershocks rocking the island just a day after a 5.8 earthquake destroyed multiple homes in this famous landmark, the Punta Ventana rock formation.
And we begin with the relentless threat from Hurricane Dorian, rapidly strengthening over the past 24 hours to a monster Category 5 storm, striking the Bahamas with 185 mile-per-hour winds and now heading towards the U.S. mainland. As we come on, take a look. The hurricane is still churning over parts of the Bahamas and just 150 miles from the Florida coast.
Tonight, Hurricane Dorian tearing across parts of the Bahamas. The powerful Category 5 storm pummeling the Abaco Islands with relentless rain and that damaging wind. The storm moving slowly across the region.
Everyone, please pray for us, please. Please, my baby's only 4 months old. Please pray for us. My baby car seat.
The aftermath devastating.
We need help. Please, someone please come help us.
Powerful new storms are building in the southern plains where 5.5 million people are threatened by severe weather. Tornadoes touched down in several states over the weekend. School is canceled today for more than 150,000 children around Oklahoma City.
That is where the biggest threat is right now. It includes Moore, Oklahoma, where a tornado killed 24 people 6 years ago today.
Dozens of twisters touched down over the weekend from Oklahoma to Texas.
Getting closer.
Storm chasers came dangerously close to disaster in Kansas on Friday.
Tonight, the South facing a disaster nightmare.
Watch it coming!
Yep, I see it.
More than 50 reported tornadoes since Sunday.
Funnel cloud right here in front of me.
In Mississippi, a tornado so powerful, radar captured debris thrown up to 60 miles away.
Now to growing concerns about the deadly coronavirus officially hitting the U.S. Here's what we know. A Washington state resident fell ill after returning from Wuhan, China, where the outbreak began. Officials now say more than 400 people have been sickened and 9 people have died. The World Health Organization is holding an emergency meeting right now.
The president and his coronavirus team are significantly ramping up the fight against the disease.
I am officially declaring a national emergency. 2 very big words.
Let's take a look at the global pandemic numbers now. There are more than 1.7 million cases of COVID-19 around the world. The U.S. is reporting more than 20,000 deaths, surpassing Italy as the country with the most fatalities. Today alone, the U.S. recorded more than 1,700 deaths. And in each state, the local governments are struggling with making decisions about schools reopening and church services on this Holy Weekend.
As America becomes the world's greatest victim of COVID-19, government officials continue to plead with citizens to stay home.
Another day, another record. Deaths hitting a new high in New York. But a hopeful sign that the curve is flattening as COVID hospitalizations have leveled off 3 straight days.
That curve is purely a function of what we do day in and day out. If we stop what we are doing, you will see that curve change.
On the front lines, the fight to save patients continues at great cost. And the longer-term projected U.S. death toll is now 60,000, down from 93,000 just a week ago, due in part to the success of social distancing. Today, New York's governor directed flags to be flown at half-staff in honor of those who died.
One of the more sinister sights, queues of customers lining up to panic buy weapons, fearing civil unrest and riots.
Forget toilet paper. In America today, they're lining up for firepower.
We're just concerned.
Anthony Gordon among dozens waiting for hours outside this gun store in Los Angeles, preparing to protect themselves in the event of civil unrest. And while the president moved to reassure the public,
Relax. We're doing great.
the nation's top infectious disease expert warned things are going to get a lot worse.
We do have breaking news tonight, a deeply divided moment playing out in American history as we come on the air. President Trump has just been impeached on both Article 1 abuse of power and on Article 2, obstruction of Congress. The votes down party lines as predicted. And all day long here, we've been watching the short bursts of anger, the closing arguments from both sides. Democrats arguing the evidence was clear, arguing the president used the power of his office for personal and political gain with this election coming. Republicans asking, where is the evidence of a crime? And the Democrats have wanted this since day one.
The World Health Organization officially announced that this is a global pandemic. We have been in frequent contact with our allies, and we are marshaling the full power of the federal government and the private sector to protect the American people. This is the most aggressive and comprehensive effort to confront a foreign virus in modern history. I am confident that by counting and continuing to take these tough measures, we will significantly reduce the threat to our citizens, and we will ultimately and expeditiously defeat this virus.
President Trump expands his controversial travel ban. 6 new countries have been added to the restricted list, including Africa's most populous country and its largest economy, Nigeria. Also on the list, Myanmar, a country where the Muslim minority is fleeing genocide. The Trump administration has already banned travel from 7 other predominantly Muslim countries.
Game on here. A trade war between the United States and China is here. It's real. At the stroke of midnight, the U.S. hit China with tariffs on $34 billion worth of goods. China immediately responded with its revenge tariffs of equal value, accusing the U.S. of launching the largest trade war in economic history and calling America trade bullies.
The coronavirus pandemic is putting an end to the longest economic expansion in U.S. history.
We are going into a global recession. We're in an economic downturn.
The world is now in recession.
Recession in the next quarter or two because everything is shutting down, of course.
It is an extraordinary disruption. It's almost like a meteor hit the entire planet. And we have to now deal with the fact that we've been knocked off our axis.
The biggest quarterly decline we've seen in annualized GDP growth was in 1950, and that was 10%. Most estimates now are for well over 10%. This is probably going to be the worst we've ever seen.
.5G will change everything.
The powerful cell phone network known as 5G, which will deliver information up to 100 times faster than today's mobile networks.
We push speed as far as we can push it.
There's no question that the concerns about U.S. government surveillance have really blown open the conversation around internet governance, about who is important and who has control over the pipes, over the functions, over the structures that run the backbone of the internet.
Our devices are casting all of these records that we do not see being created, that in aggregate seem very innocent. You were at Starbucks at this time. You went to the hospital afterwards. You spent a long time at the hospital. After you left the hospital, you made a phone call. You made a phone call to your mother. You talked to her until the middle of the night. The hospital was an oncology clinic. Even if you can't see the content of these communications, the activity records, what the government calls metadata, which they argue they do not need a warrant to collect, tells the whole story. And these activity records are being created and shared and collected and intercepted constantly by companies and governments. And ultimately it means as they sell these, as they trade these, as they make their businesses on the backs of these records, what they are selling is not information. What they're selling is us.
Humans did this. It's time to undo it. The heavens are real, and there's still a lot more to come.